Let me share my story. My wife and I have been married for 4 years. Life was great. A typical, happy family life, much like that of many others. I worked, and my wife worked too. We didn't have kids yet, but we were both 30 years old, and we had plans for a family in the future. Honestly, everything was going well. We had no major arguments, and I had complete faith in her. We lived in my 3-bedroom apartment, and life was good. We went out together, partied together, and even drank together. We were a happy couple, and I couldn't imagine life without her. I never went clubbing, never cheated on her, and always came home every night. We were planning for a child in the future, along with some home renovations. One evening, we were at a friend's house. We had a good time, drinking and chatting, but nothing excessive. We came home around midnight. I went to bed, but my wife said she wanted to sit at the computer for a while. I didn't think much of it, since I completely trusted her, however. When I woke up at around 8, I noticed she wasn't in bed. I went to the computer room and found her typing away. The moment she saw me, she started closing all the browser windows hastily. Asked her, "What are you doing?" She replied, "Oh, just browsing random stuff on the internet." I felt uneasy but didn't press her. She went to bed shortly after, and I waited until I could check the browsing history. She had been on a dating website, Male, Rue, or something similar. She had been chatting with different men, sending messages to several. Most didn't respond, but one man did, and they quickly hit it off. Their conversation escalated to discussing sex, with her complaining about how uninspiring it was with me. I was floored. She had written things like, "Sex with my husband doesn't excite me," and their messages turned increasingly flirtatious. They even exchanged photos and talked about meeting in person. While their plans didn't materialize, the mere fact that my wife, a married woman, was engaging in such conversations was a blow to my heart. I didn't wait. I woke her up and showed her everything. At first, she acted confused, claiming she didn't understand what she was seeing. Then came the apologies. She said it was because she was drunk, lonely, and lacked communication. I was torn. I thought about kicking her out, but I convinced myself it was a one-time virtual mistake. I forgave her. For months, I tried to forget, but the trust had been shattered. Deep down, I was always waiting for something similar to happen. 5 months later, it did. She got a new job and worked there for 4 months. One evening, I noticed her sitting on the couch, glued to her phone, chatting away on Skype. I casually asked, "Who are you talking to?" She replied, "Oh, just a girlfriend." At first, I believed her, but the unease grew. She was spending more and more time on the computer, and every time I entered the room, she quickly closed whatever she was doing. Installed spyware on the computer. The program recorded keystrokes and took screenshots. Then I waited. One day, I came home early and decided to check the logs. What I found was unbearable. She had been chatting with a coworker for over a month, a man who was her department head. He was hospitalized at the time, and their messages were filled with intimacy and longing. She called him my kitten and expressed how much she missed him, even saying she wanted to kiss him. Every day, while I was at work or even at home, she was texting him, often mentioning that she had to be careful because her husband might see. One night, I came home late after drinking with a friend. I opened the computer and saw messages from her to him about how she planned to visit him in the hospital and how much she missed him. That was it, I snapped. I confronted her. I woke her up, furious, and showed her everything. Her initial reaction was denial, followed by tears. She claimed he had pursued her and that nothing physical had happened. She insisted she loved me and blamed me for not giving her enough attention. But I couldn't believe her. I kicked her out of the house that very night. She left, taking only a few belongings. Surprisingly, she didn't fight back much. There were no dramatic tears, no desperate apologies, just silence. That silence spoke volumes. A few days later, I accessed her Skype account and started chatting with the man as if I were her. He quickly realized it wasn't her. He was married, with a 3-year-old daughter, and tried to downplay everything as a harmless flirtation. I wasn't buying it. I saved all their chats and sent them to his wife, exposing the theist affair. 2 weeks passed and she called, begging to talk. She apologized, claiming it was all a mistake, and that she was being ignored by the other man now. She asked for another chance, and like a fool, I gave in. I still loved her, and I desperately wanted to believe her, but the damage was done. Trust was gone. Months later, we were still together, but I had become paranoid, constantly checking her phone and doubting her every move. Life became a cycle of stress and suspicion. Eventually, I realized I couldn't live like this anymore. I needed to let go. Now, I'm with someone new, a woman who's everything my wife wasn't. I've moved on, and for the first time in years, I feel alive again. If there's one lesson learned, it's that betrayal is unforgivable. Trust, once broken, is irreparable. After forgiving her the second time, I tried to rebuild our relationship, but deep inside, I knew it was pointless. The pain had dulled over time, but the residue of mistrust lingered. Every time she picked up her phone, I would feel a pang of suspicion. Every late text, every time she smiled at her screen, I couldn't help but think of her betrayal. I had become a paranoid shadow of my former self. It wasn't just about her actions anymore. It was about how those actions had permanently altered my ability to feel secure in our relationship. I started looking for an excuse to end things for good. I was stuck in a loop of constant surveillance, waiting for the smallest slip to justify my decision to leave. Deep down, I understood that staying in the marriage wasn't fair to either of us. I couldn't trust her, and she couldn't live freely without my constant doubts and accusations. But my love for her, or maybe just my attachment, kept pulling me back. Then came the turning point. A friend of mine shared his story during a casual conversation over drinks. His wife had cheated on him as well, and instead of dragging the relationship out, he ended it swiftly and moved on with his life. His resolve inspired me, and I realized I needed to make the same decision. If I wanted to reclaim my happiness and sanity, I had to let go. Now, I'll share another part of my life story, one that came after I made the decision to leave my wife. I'm 31 years old. My ex-wife is 26. We were married for 5 years and had a son together. I worked hard to provide for my family. I owned 2 businesses, had a car and 2 businesses, had an apartment, and was steadily building a secure future for us. I loved my wife deeply and devoted myself to making her and our son happy. My life revolved around them, and I worked long hours, usually until 8 p.m. with only 1 day off each week. Even with my busy schedule, I always tried to make time for my family. I envisioned a beautiful future where we'd have a second child and grow old together. 5 months ago, I discovered her infidelity. Until that moment, I had never even considered cheating myself. The betrayal felt like someone had spat in my soul, burned it, and left me with nothing but emptiness. For 2 weeks, I lived in a nightmare, unable to sleep or eat properly. I stayed with my parents during that time, trying to find some semblance of peace. Eventually, I met a new woman, a truly amazing person. She came into my life unexpectedly, but she helped me realize that I could still rebuild my happiness. She is everything my ex-wife wasn't: kind, intelligent, loving, and supportive. Being with her made me feel like a new person. I finally understood what it meant to be with someone who truly valued and respected me. For the first time in years, I felt alive again. Our relationship brought me joy in ways I never thought possible. Even our intimacy was on a completely different level, something I had never experienced before. It was as though fate was making up for everything I had lost, giving me a partner who embodied everything I had been missing. Looking back, I realized that holding on to my marriage had been a mistake. I had forgiven my ex-wife because I loved her, but love wasn't enough to rebuild what she had broken. Trust is the foundation of any relationship, and once it's gone, everything else crumbles. I finally accepted that there was no going back. To all the men out there who might be in a similar situation, let me offer you some advice. If you've been betrayed, don't cling to the past. Know your worth and walk away. Forgiveness may seem noble, but it's not always the right choice. Betrayal is a poison that seeps into the very core of a relationship, and no amount of love can erase its effects. If someone is capable of betraying you when things are good, imagine how easily they could do so when times are tough. Don't waste your life trying to fix what's irreparably broken. Instead, move forward and find someone who truly values you. Life is too short to settle for anything less than happiness and respect. This is my story, a cry from the soul. It's not easy to share such personal experiences, but I hope it helps others realize that they're not alone, and that there is life after betrayal. If you're facing a similar situation, don't lose hope. Use these stories as a guide, and remember that the end of one chapter can be the beginning of something far better. I now live a life free of lies and mistrust. My new relationship is a blessing, and I've learned to cherish what I have. I'll never learn to cherish what I had. Forget the lessons my past taught me, but I'm thankful for the opportunity to start anew. Let this be a reminder to everyone. Betrayal has no place in a loving relationship, and there's always a way to rebuild your life when you choose to walk away. I realized that my journey didn't just end with leaving my wife. It was about rebuilding myself entirely. My ex-wife tried to reach out again, asking for yet another chance. She cried, apologized, and begged me to think about our family, our son. She swore that she'd change, that she'd learned from her mistakes. But I had already made up my mind. I told her firmly, "We've tried this before. I forgave you, but you betrayed my trust again. There's no coming back from this." Despite her pleas, I couldn't see a future with her anymore. Every time I looked at her, I was reminded of the lies, the deceit, and the pain. I knew that staying together for the sake of our child would only create an unhealthy environment. Children notice more than we think, and I didn't want my son to grow up witnessing resentment or mistrust. I made the painful decision to finalize our divorce. It was not an easy process, but it was necessary. I kept the apartment and continued supporting my son financially. My ex-wife moved in with her parents, and we arranged a visitation schedule for her to see our son. Although it hurt to break apart the family we had built, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief knowing I was no longer living a lie. After the divorce, I focused on healing. I threw myself into my work, my hobbies, and spending quality time with my son. I started going to the gym regularly and even picked up fishing and hiking as ways to clear my mind. It felt strange at first, building a life as a single man again, but over time I rediscovered parts of myself I had forgotten. My relationship with my son became stronger than ever. Without the tension of a failing marriage hanging over us, I could fully dedicate myself to being a good father. We spent weekends exploring nature, playing games, and bonding in ways we hadn't before. I realized that, even though my marriage had ended, my life was far from over. In fact, it was just a beginning. Then, unexpectedly, love found me again. The woman I met seemed like she was straight out of a dream. She was kind, caring, and understanding in ways my ex-wife had never been. She appreciated the little things about me. The things that had gone unnoticed for so long. For the first time in years, I felt truly valued. Our connection was effortless. We laughed together, shared our dreams, and supported each other unconditionally. It wasn't just about romance. It was about partnership. She didn't just fill the void left by my ex-wife. She helped me grow into a better version of myself. I finally understood what a healthy, loving relationship could feel like. The intimacy we shared was unlike anything I had experienced before. It wasn't just physical. It was emotional and spiritual. She made me feel alive in ways I didn't think were possible after the pain I had endured. I realized that I had been settling for less in my previous marriage, blinded by my love and commitment. Looking back, I'm grateful for the lessons my past taught me. My ex-wife's betrayal hurt deeply, but it also pushed me to reevaluate my life and what I wanted from a partner. I learned that forgiveness is not always the answer, especially when it comes at the expense of your own self-worth. Some relationships aren't meant to last, and that's okay. It's better to let go and create space for something better than to hold on to something that's only causing pain. To those who find themselves in a similar situation, I urge you, don't be afraid to start over. It's never too late to choose happiness and respect over a toxic relationship. Life is too short to live in fear, doubt, or mistrust. Find the strength to walk away and rebuild your life. It won't be easy, but it will be worth it. Now, I'm living proof that it's possible to overcome betrayal and find happiness again. My son is thriving, my career is on track, and I'm in a relationship that brings me joy every day. The scars of the past remain, but they no longer define me. Instead, they remind me of how far I've come and how much I've grown. If I can leave you with one piece of advice, it's this. Love yourself enough to demand honesty, loyalty, and respect. And if someone can't give you that, have the courage to walk away. You deserve nothing less than a partner who cherishes you for who you are. This is my story, a journey of heartbreak, resilience, and renewal. I hope it inspires others to find and renewal. I hope it inspires others to find their own strength and to remember that, even in the darkest moments, there is always hope for a brighter tomorrow. After going through everything, I still reflect on the lessons this experience taught me. One of the hardest realizations was that betrayal isn't just about infidelity. It's about the lies, the manipulation, and the disregard for someone's feelings. It strips away the foundation of trust, leaving only broken pieces behind. Even if love remains, it's not enough to rebuild something so fundamentally fractured. I often think about the moment I decided to forgive her the first time. Was it the right decision? Perhaps not. But at the time, I truly believed in the possibility of change. I wanted to hold on to the family we had built, and I thought that love could conquer all. Now, I understand that love without trust is like a house without a foundation. It may stand for a while, but it will eventually collapse. Over time, I've learned to forgive, not her, but myself. Forgiving myself for staying when I should have left, for ignoring the red flags, and for allowing my love to blind me. To the truth, it's easy to blame yourself in the aftermath of betrayal, to think you weren't good enough, or that you could have done something differently. But the truth is, betrayal is a choice the other person makes, and it's never your fault. Now that I've moved on, I see life through a different lens. My new relationship has shown me what it feels like to be truly loved and respected. It's not about grand gestures or perfect moments. It's about the small, everyday acts of kindness and understanding. It's about being with someone who values honesty and prioritizes our relationship above all else. The future looks bright, and for the first time in years, I feel hopeful. I'm building a life filled with love, trust, and happiness. Things I thought I might never find again. My son is growing up in a healthier environment, surrounded by positivity and care. And as for my ex-wife, I harbor no ill will toward her anymore. I've let go of the anger and resentment, because holding on to it only holds you back. If you're reading this and facing a similar situation, I want you to know that you're not alone. It's okay to feel hurt, angry, or lost. It's okay to take time to heal and figure out your next steps. But, most importantly, it's okay to walk away from something that no longer serves you. Life is too precious to waste on people who don't value you. Remember, every ending is a new beginning. My story didn't end with betrayal. It started with and now I'm living proof that there's life, love, and happiness after heartbreak. So don't be afraid to take that leap. You deserve the best, and it's out there waiting for you. You just have to believe it's possible.